Welcome to part two. You all right, Julian? Power cut.
We've had half the house had a power cut. The boiler's triggered. The Wi-Fi's triggered. I bet they don't have this problem at Matchroom HQ, mate, don't you?
Yeah. We were speaking about Spotty Frank.
Yeah. So anybody who basically is not a brain surgeon won't have the intelligence to understand the process and the appeal and everything else. And then he started ripping into labourers and builders, basically saying, if you're a builder, how are we going to understand this? Horrific, really. It shows the elitist mentality that they've got, and it also shows the low contempt that they've got for people who are DAZN subscribers.
Yeah, it's what do you think about it as a whole?
I think it's bad form to say things like that. I really do. I mean, he'll get away with it, but what was also interesting was he's basically saying we don't have to show all our cards because no one really understands it. And he was saying, I think Gareth A. Davis and Carl Froch you mentioned, and he was saying, what's it got to do with you? What's it got to do with you?
Then he were having a dig at Froch being a builder, wasn't he?
Yeah, so have a go at Carl Froch, who clearly is a bright guy who's probably saved the first penny that he ever earned. And this is not this is someone who's invested all his money into property and everything. This no flies
Building
on.
skyscrapers, mate. Skyscrapers. He's
Yeah.
not.
But he's not bright enough to understand like a bit of paperwork, what states the process and the process that Conor Benn's been through. And it was also interesting that I mentioned Gareth A. Davis. Now, the Gad gets a bit of stick on here. I think it's tongue in cheek. I think we joke, but we have a bit of affection for the Gad.
A smart
Now,
guy, the Gad, isn't
I was going to say, this is a smart guy. This is a guy who's well read, very, very well educated. And is Frank Smith really going to suggest that someone like Gareth A. Davis, who's is just such a smart guy, brilliant at literature, brilliant at what he does, he's not going to understand this as well. So builders don't understand it because they're stupid, apparently, according to Frank Smith. Labourers are stupid. And even Gareth A. Davis and Carl Froch are stupid. And even if they're not stupid enough to be able to understand what's gone on in the process, what's it got to do with them anyway? So what has it got to do with anybody is basically saying why Conor Benn has had he's had a successful, they've reinstated him wherever, but they're basically saying he's cleared to fight, obviously not in the UK. And he's like, what's it got to do with them? What's it got to do with anybody? Basically, they're saying we can get away with really bad behaviour. We don't want anyone to question the fact that we've got off on jurisdictional purposes and know the reason why they've got off. But we don't want people to challenge that because they don't know the full details.
It's nobody's business anyway.
Yeah, it's no one's business. What's it got to do with anybody? So what has it got to do with fans who pay your wage, Frank, who pay Conor Benn's wage, who pay Eddie's wage? What has it got to do with fans? What has it got to do with the British Boxing Board of Control? What has it got to do with the relationship that we have with journalists? See, this always makes me laugh. It's like people love and they choose and use how they exploit relationships with journalists. So, a lot of Matchroom and IFL, they had a needs didn't they, business between them. They needed each other. And people use journalists and people use the press when it suits them. But then when the press start challenging them, they don't like it. Well, it doesn't work like that, Frank, and you should know that if you work in media and you're the CEO of Matchroom Boxing, you should know that it's got everything to do with journalists and everything to do with the boxing authority and a hell of a lot to do with boxing people and boxing fans. If someone's boxing and they've been taking performance-enhancing drugs and they're going to get a different process to everybody else and they're not going to get a ban like anybody else, they can just go ahead and do what they want. It's got everything to do with everyone, Frank. Grow up, grow a pair of balls and answer some proper questions.
What is it with Spotty Frank at the moment? He's strutting about in his ice cream outfit, right? he's giving it the large, but he didn't used to be like that, did he?
Yeah, he's a sidekick, isn't he? And that's exactly what he is. It's
Do you think that Eddie's words that he's putting out there, because Eddie ain't got time to deal with it?
yeah, Eddie's winding him up. But the one thing you can say about Eddie, I mean, sometimes you see Eddie rattled with the media, but it's very rare, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's a good speaker, is Eddie Hearn. He's quick on his feet. He made mincemeat of Simon Jordan a couple of times.
Iced
He
him.
destroyed Simon Jordan. It was painful to watch someone who you hoped would put up a better performance than that. And then it's almost like Eddie can do this stuff. But when you saw the Boxing King media interview from Saturday night with Frank Smith, he was stuttering. He kept drinking water. He got 2 bottles of water in his hand and he drank them both.
Is Frank Smith, aka Spotty Frank, is he struggling under pressure?
Oh, he's melting under the lights, isn't he? And he's not someone who's
Spotty Frank's melting.
He's folding like he folded from Eddie Hearn's right up to the body, isn't he? He's not dealing with
I tell you what, some of them right hooks Eddie were putting in on him, he were putting some mustard on them.
Eddie's a big lad, isn't he? I mean, we joke about him, but
I tell you what, mate, there was some thudding blows, then weren't there?
Eddie's an athletic lad, and we've all seen him hit the punch ball. He can throw a right hand, can Eddie Hearn? I don't think anyone's suggesting that he can't. And what is he? Must be 6'3", 6'4". He's probably 15, 16, 17 stone. Eddie's a size. But Frank folded under the barrage, didn't he? Yeah, the switch at Frank Smith. But it sounds like we're having a go at this guy. Well, we are, because he's having a go at all the working class people who do manual labour. He'll say that he was misquoted. We all heard what you said on Saturday, Frank. Awful behaviour, mate, and it just does nothing to help the perception that we think you're a set of overprivileged, elitist public school boys. That's what we think about you, and coming out with comments like that.
Would you throw Keller into the mix with them?
He's just off his head, isn't he? He's crackers, isn't he, Keller? I can't take Keller seriously for 2 reasons.
He's off his box. He's off his box.
He's off his box. He always comes across, even though
that's off his box.
Again, do you know the one thing I've always said? I've been consistent on this. Eddie Hearn, we won't know me from Adam, but he always comes across as I kind of like Eddie Hearn. You know, he's got behaviours that I don't appreciate, but I kind of like him. He's quirky, he's cheeky, and he's quite funny. Keller is just crackers. The guy's like he's crackers. I can't describe him as any other way. But I don't not care for him. I think Keller's entertaining, but I can't get over the fact that he was going to put Chris Eubank in at £157 with a guy with 2 adverse findings or 1 adverse findings as far as he knew. I can't get past that. But it's the pack mentality I don't like, of the Frank Smiths of this world, who's becoming bold and obnoxious.
He's becoming like Mr. Big, isn't he? Frank Smith, Spotty Frank.
Yeah,
Frank's like Mr. Big, and he's like mob life. He is about that life.
And this is the thing: is I never think arrogance is a good character trait, but you can understand how someone might be arrogant. I'll give you an example. So you
think about it turning into like a little gangster, because I've seen him a few times, and he's always seems to be chauffeured driven in some big car and that, getting out of the back like Ray Winston. Is he like this new breed of OG?
I don't know. Some of the cardigans I've seen him on, he's clearly a little pampered little boy. Is Frank Smith, but he's coming across as someone who's a bit of a lad, isn't he? And it's not working. It was when you used to listen to him 12, 18 months ago, it was all right. You know, it was like, you know, it was.
He was all right when he was switching southpaw against Eddie Hill, the 6-0 Iceman. He managed to get to the final bell, though, didn't he?
I think Eddie eased off him. I think Eddie carried him, actually. I think the Billericay Iceman, I think he could have finished matters at any point in that time.
Eddie were winding that big rights up, wasn't he?
It was actually entertaining to watch, wasn't it? It was funny. It's like, you know, we've all done it. We've all got trained at the gym and had the body spar with our mates, and it is what it is. But
Eddie in full swing.
He took a needed Frank, didn't he? I mean, we've all been dropped a few times. There's no shame there, Frank. But don't let reality and fiction kind of get blurred. You need to stop this act. You need to stop going after Frank Warren. You need to stop going after Bricktop and this. Every time I see Frank Smith now, he's what he's gone from though. He's gone from ripping an old man, having a go at Frank Warren. Now he's having a go at Adam Catterall. And he's having a go at everybody else. And then he mentioned Carl Froch, and I just went like that. I thought, you need to be careful, Frank, because at some point in boxing people, the boxers, the fighters, at some point, someone's going to pull you in a corner, mate, and have a little chat with you. And you're just going to crap your pants, mate.
Frank's rubbed a few up. I'll tell you one of them. He something happened in the dressing room in Cardiff, and Pat Barrett grabbed him and threw him about 20 foot.
Really? Oh,
Out of the dressing room.
that's a frightening guy, isn't it, to be honest? If I was in a dressing room and Pat Barrett said me out.
That's like Shook Knight walking into Penthouse, isn't it? And saying, can you have a word on balcony?
Be like, all right, Pat, all right, mate, I'm going. Yeah. The gangster, Frank Smith, I'm loving it.
Frank Smith, yeah. The OG, mixing it with OGs.
He's like a poor man's, like a poor man's Ray Winston, isn't he?
I don't know what his role is really. Is he just the guy that flies about getting people to sign contracts? Because that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I mean,
that actual role.
I wonder if Eddie's just got so bored of talking to the media. Is do a few of these for me, Frank. Come on, I'm sick of doing these. I want to have a couple of nights off. Do us a few of these and wind so and so up and wind so and so up. And
I like it when Eddie goes on IFL and he talks about crisps, and when he talks about Frank Smith, Spotty Frank being a rising star. Rising star. Oh my God.
It is funny, isn't it? It's like
you think Bricktop cares? Bricktop's putting some big zillionaire event on next month. He's just put a show on at weekend and won a couple weeks ago.
Frank Warren destroyed him, didn't he? He just basically says you're a number two, Frank Smith, in every single way in life. You're a number two. You know, trying to get your brother-in-law battered, not even tell him about the failed test. It's snake-like behaviour, isn't it?
Snake-like. He's a reptile man, isn't he? The guy's a reptile man. Frank Smith, Spotty Frank, you're a reptile.
Yeah, you dismiss Frank.
Robert Smith, you obviously heard his thing on TalkSport, haven't you now?
Yep.
What do you make of that?
He's still angry as Robert Smith, isn't he? Whatever stick we've given Robert Smith, and from day one, have they done this perfect? Have they done the whole process and PR as well as they could have and should have done? No. But I think the sentiment, what you've got with Smith as an ex-fighter, is ultimately we can't have drugs cheats in boxing. And they're appealing this decision by the UK anti-doping panel. They're appealing it because they know it's in his system. And I think they heavily suspect how it's got there. That's my understanding. And I don't care what comes out of this now. And I think they're holding the nerve. And when they got asked, should he be fighting this weekend? He says, no, he shouldn't. And I think that's their understanding. And I tried to avoid going back onto Frank Smith and Eddie Hearn, but they continually say we've done everything that's being asked of us. Well, you haven't. You weren't asked to go in front of the anti-doping independent anti-doping panel. You weren't asked to go in front of them. You're asked to explain how it got in your system by UKAD and the British Boxing Board of Control. Never mind appealing on jurisdictional grounds. You got asked to present your findings to UKAD and the Board of Control, and you haven't done that. You're telling lies that you've done everything that's been asked of you. The one thing you've been asked to do, you haven't done. And I think that's why Robert Smith is just not letting go of it. He's like, they're appealing this because they know it was in his system. And they know, Russell, he can't explain why it was in his system.
I know. All right.
Black.
Zhang, Joyce.
Oh, once again, we talked about this 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we were saying, I think it was on one of our shows, and we said, what think's going to happen? And I said, same again, because you can't have a Joe Joyce at 38-year-old who suddenly learns in 5 months how to fight a guy like Zhang when he's never demonstrated in 20 odd years of boxing an ability to slip a shot.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Whatever people say about Zhang, Zhang's not a really clever southpaw. He's a capable southpaw. He's got sharp hands, good balance, good feet, and he's a big unit. But he's not a slickster. And it's like, I also think Ismail
It'd be food and drink to Fury and Usyk, wouldn't he, Zhang?
Yeah, I think the only problem Usyk could have with a Zhang is his sheer size in terms of it box rings round him, but maybe he might not get him out of there. Fury would beat Zhang up. He'd just beat him up. But what I want to talk about is the coaching aspect of it, and Ismail Salas and things that everybody's been so naive how they spoke about this fight. It's like he needs to move to his left against a southpaw. It's one of those things in boxing that becomes like you move to your left against a southpaw, and it's not really. That's not how you approach southpaws. First of all, you approach every fight differently, yeah. But you got to be able to move both ways. It's as simple as that. And for such a basic game plan that they had, which was to just move to the left, I was cringing. Any fighter worth their salt, if you're an orthodox fighter fighting a southpaw, if you're orthodox fighting an orthodox guy moves to his left. The general theory is you step across, you throw a left hook. Guy moves to his right, you step under, you touch across, you throw a right hand. Basic theory. So did they think that they were going to fight a guy like Zhang, who's an Olympian himself as well, silver medalist? And if you just move to your left, the guy's not going to be able to hit you with the left cross. And of course, with the right hand, which was the finishing blow. And I'm like, is that how naive this is Ismail Salas, this trainer, approached that fight? Is that how naive it was? And just to sort of break it down a little bit, if you're fighting a guy who's a southpaw like Zhang, and he's catching you with the backhand, if you continually move to your left, they're almost saying that if he moves to his left, he's moving away from the left hand. And it's actually not true. All Zhang has to do is to step his right foot over Joyce's left, shift his weight across, and then he'll just put a bit more length on the backhand. So that's exactly what he did in the second round. Forget the right hand, what finished him. In the second round, all Zhang did was he just started shifting across. It was so basic and so crude, the game plan of Joyce. I was like watching through my fingers like that. And I was just saying, I talk to myself when I'm watching the boxing. And
it was Dave Allen-esque, wasn't it?
He's just going to step across. He's just going to shift across to his right and loop the left hand, just like Manny Pacquiao.
It was trying to be crude, but you need more than that to beat Zhang, don't you?
You get a guy like Zhang. If you think, if you get a mover against a Zhang, say Fury fights Zhang, he's not just going to move to his left away from Zhang's left cross. He's going to step to his left. He's going to step right. He's going to come under. He's going to step back in a straight line. He's going to do all these different things. This is called boxing. There isn't one anecdote for one move. And I just couldn't believe how crude it was. What was also a little bit bizarre from Frank Warren was he made a comment. He mustn't have been watching the fight. He said Joyce was doing really well, and for the first 2 rounds he was doing really well. And then he went away from the game plan in the 3rd round and he got caught. Now, is my memory gone, or that second round he was getting hammered in the second round?
Oh,
he was getting caught every single time. I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyway, listen. Whatever we thought about Joyce, because a couple of us, you kind of think, oh, he's this big destroyer, he's this immovable object. He's really poor, isn't he?
Olympic silver, British Commonwealth, European champion, and he got to number one rank.
Wow.
So he's overachieved for his ability, hasn't he?
Did you see the first 2 rounds? How slow it was
Danny
punching.
Williams and Gary Mason would have made mincemeat out
Would
of
have
him.
hammered him. It was weird actually because
Frank Bruno would have peppered him with a jab.
so
Peppered him to death.
everybody was saying he was too light in the first fight, and then
Then he came in looking like desperate Danwick. Hamburger. Did you say all hamburger meat and that?
he
Oh,
walked
Eric
in.
Chest and that. He went all Burt Reynolds.
He went big fat face walking towards the ring, and I'm like, who's training you? Who's making these decisions? But ultimately, right?
What about when he had that pumpkin on his head?
I'm always consistent when I talk to you, Russell, all the time. I'm always consistent. Like David Price, Tony Thompson, stupid rematch against a guy like that. You don't go straight into a rematch with a guy like that. Anthony Joshua, Usyk, straight into a rematch again. What is it with these activating rematches? You know what? You get beat. Look at Lennox Lewis against McCall. You get beat. You go back to the drawing board. You get some more fights in there. You show that you are capable of approaching different fighters different ways. That's what you do. What is it with people just going straight back in to these
What is it with that EIS up there? I mean, look at these Olympians we've had in recent times, right? Audley, David Price, Joshua, Big Freeze, and this dude, Joyce.
So you just mentioned the list of fighters there, and there's not one natural ring IQ with any of them, is there?
None.
I mean, people will now be listening, saying, "Hang on a minute, gold medal, silver medal," but there's not one of them guys can think for themselves. Not one of them, and it's pretty worrying.
David
really,
Price has been knocked out 7 times. Joshua's gun shy. We don't even need to speak about Audley Harrison, do we? Joe Joyce, you've just seen him. It's Big Freeze. Jury's out on it's Big Freeze. Have I missed anybody? I think that's about it, isn't it? Jury's out on it's Big Freeze. But as for the rest of them, well.
And I'm not saying
they're not worth a carrot, are they?
No, they're not. You know, the one who I did watch, and I'm not saying he's great, by the way, was kind of come from that GB background. Was it Solomon Dakers?
He's about 6-0, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's the next big thing.
He's the next gen, isn't he? Next gen.
Got a little bit of that. He's got a little bit of. I mean, if you look at obviously Moses Saituma, who boxed at the weekend. I mean, again, people say you're jumping on the bandwagon. It's nothing to do with that. This is a kid who's got. I always talk about a natural ring IQ. Yeah. You get a better ring IQ with experience, but some people, the best way to simplify a ring IQ is some people are really comfortable in a ring under pressure. They're just comfortable under pressure, and they've different ways of diffusing that pressure, whether it's, get on the back foot, stand and block, spoil, really cool under pressure. Now, all those names you've just mentioned there, every single one of them tells me they're all manufactured heavyweights, because you've gone from David Price to Audley Harrison. You said them, didn't you? Fraser Clark and Joe Joyce and Anthony Joshua. Yeah. None of them, what's the common thing with all of them? None of them are comfortable under pressure.
They've all made millions.
Exactly, but they're just big, strong, manufactured guys who can do the ABCs of boxing, but they're not comfortable under pressure. Do you remember how comfortable a guy like Larry Holmes is when someone's walking him down, or how comfortable Ali was? Yeah. Just laying back on the ropes and just slip, parry, block, double block. How comfortable Tyson Fury is. Usyk, when AJ was charging forward in the 9th round, he just spun and he turned and he pivoted. Comfortable. When Chisora was letting his hands go against Usyk and people thought it was a close fight, and Usyk was just literally just, this is easy, this is like a bull in a matador. But all those guys you've just mentioned, none of them are comfortable under pressure. So why is that? What who's teaching these guys? I want to forget ever about this, but
we're never going to get to know, are we? Because something's amiss in it. I mean, David Price, Olympic bronze, he were going to kill us all in our beds, wasn't he? We're like Godzilla. He was the heir apparent, according to the disappearing man.
I mean, the first Tony Thompson fight, he got hit by nothing, didn't he? It was like a shot.
When it's all right knocking everybody out, then when you get in with somebody with some ring craft, that's what happens, and then you think it's a fluke. So you go in again, and then it happens again, and then it's game over. And it's like that with Joshua, but they've seen it early with Joshua, so they protected him, manufactured him, got him into position, but he got fun out, didn't he? Do you know what I mean?
Which goes back to what we were saying about part one about Conor Benn and stuff. It's like they've got to get the matchmaking right. But I'll tell you what, would be a novel idea, Russell. Instead of getting the matchmaking right, why don't they get the development of the fighter right? Isn't that more important? Yeah. Look at, we talk about these things, but look at Marvin Hagler before he fought Alan Minter. Yep, couple of losses on his record, couple of draws, whatever. Marvin Hagler had fought every single style all the way through his development. $400 I think he got for his debut or something, and fighting in people's backyards, fighting on the road, just learning his craft, traveling for sparring, etc. This is all gone now, hasn't it? We've got all this, Institute of Sport, all these protected fighters now who have got everything given for them. But what they're not getting is they're not demonstrating the ability to think, are they?
Oh.
There's very, very few fighters at the moment who we're seeing, certainly the heavyweights we've named, who have got that real ability to think. And that's what I always look for in a fighter. And that's why if you get...
The bar, you could add him to that list, couldn't you?
Same. Absolute same. Can't cope under pressure, doesn't have the ability to think. I mean, was it... Who can forget the Ruiz and AJ fight, the first one, and then the Usyk fight, the first one, where he's actually saying to Robert McCracken, what were to throw? Will you throw this? And then what will he throw? And it was like, wow, you're giving a guy a coaching lesson in the corner. And I don't ever remember Angelo Dundee explaining to Ali what shots to throw and how to parry a left jab and how to defend a left hook. It's a bit weird, and it's almost becomes boxing by numbers. I don't know. That's part of the thing that always interests me. But for me, the really good fighters are the ones who can just think for themselves. And whatever we say about, Tyson Fury or Usyk, no matter what side of the fence you're on, who you like, I'm Team Fury, I'm Team Usyk. They can think for themselves. I think that ultimately that's what's separating them from the rest of the heavyweights right now.
Yeah. What do you think to Anthony Yarde?
The one thing about Anthony Yarde is he looks like a fighter should look, doesn't he? I mean, he's a physical specimen, very, very powerful. I think he's had some injuries or something, but the problem I've got with Anthony Yarde is it's the lack of activity. And then when they do fight, they just, you can't, you fight a Kovalev and then you drop down, and he was fighting Lyndon Arthur. You fight a Beterbiev, and now you're dropping down fighting these guys. Anthony Yarde should be out 3 times a year, 4 times a year in good 10-rounders and good international contests. And then if he does get another shot at a world title, he'll be ready for it. But if you think about when he fought Beterbiev, he hadn't boxed for a while himself, had he?
Oh.
That's not preparation, mate, for fighting a beast like Beterbiev. It's not preparation. It always gets me back to what I talk about all the time, which is the development of fighters. You got to develop fighters and keep them active. And this thing we've got now with, boxers being part-time fighters, I find it absolutely bizarre, mate. And I guess it's why when you look at makes you appreciate, doesn't it, Terence Crawford, because like I talk about ring IQ, about he can do absolutely everything there is, and not everybody's like a Terence Crawford, but that's why I love fighters like that. And I'll tell you, I like watching as well. I even like watching Sonny Edwards because Sonny Edwards has got a great ring IQ. He's a very, very, very clever fighter, and he's someone clearly who studies the art of boxing, and he's got a great coach in Grant Smith as well. But I know I'm diverting slightly, but I like clever fighters, mate. I like watching clever fighters, and I like seeing fighters who can deal with problems and deal with different styles. And we're not seeing too much of that at the moment.
Eddie, begging bowl out.
Oh,
Chinese money.
so we've now got Zhang in China. What happened to Wilder in Saudi, Russell?
It's Joshua Zhang now.
Oh, it's Joshua Zhang. There you go. That's he might as well though, because Anthony Joshua's last few opponents, they keep going up in age, don't they?
Yeah.
But you might as well call out the guy who was 40.
He'll be approaching 41 if Joshua fights him.
I mean, they still wouldn't put Joshua anywhere near Zhang, would they? I think what they fancy is Zhang's mandatory ranking, don't they? That's ultimately what they fancy. Again, we spoke about this. I think it's been an interesting chat. We spoke about matchmaking. What do you do with AJ now? If you can't deliver this massive money fight against Wilder,
you risk him against the top 15er.
It's a big risk, mate. But time's not on anybody's side right now, either, because we've got these new wave of heavyweights coming through, and we're going to have to see these big fights soon, because these younger kids are going to be knocking on the door.
Yeah. Well, we need to see some fights, don't we? Because it's been pretty drab, hasn't it? What we've had's not been. Bricktop's been on form this season, hasn't he?
Yeah,
but,
and
he's been putting shows out. Well done to Bricktop, but they're not.
I remember saying
to scream about, are they?
Nothing's anything to jump up and down about at the moment. The one thing I am liking, I know we talk about heavyweights, so they're not always my cup of tea, but I've said this before he turned pro, was Moses Atumai. I like that kid, mate. There's something relaxed about that kid. And even though, yeah, of course, he's fighting knockovers right now, but I saw 3 of his amateur fights, and he looked really comfortable in that ring in the World Junior Championships. And on Saturday, I know he was hitting a punch bag, right? I'm not getting too carried away, but there was 2 things on Saturday we saw. First of all was that almost corkscrew left uppercut. That was a beautifully delivered punch. This is an 18-year-old kid we're talking about. That was a beautifully delivered punch. And then the follow-up, when his opponent rose, he put about 8-9 shots together, didn't he, in the space of about 2 seconds. When was the last time you saw a heavyweight punch with that kind of speed?
Oh, yeah. He's exciting, isn't he?
Going to be a hand. I just hope he ticks the boxes that we need him to tick. You know, take a punch.
He's signed to Bricktop as well.
That's what I was talking about, because you talk about Frank Warren right now.
Bricktop's going to be a force at heavyweight.
Well, you always say to me who's number one, and we always have the question, and the landscape's like the transfer season, isn't it, in football? It's kind of you're only as big as your latest signing. Well, Frank Warren's latest signing with the money people, the Saudis.
Oh yeah, Saudis and Moses. It's Moses. The future's bright. The future is Bricktop.
It's massive, isn't it? That this deal is done with the Saudis, and now they were so clear. Whatever boxing we put on, we do it with Frank. It's huge, mate. It's a huge
and he's
deal.
on back foot. He's already coming out saying, "Oh, we've got a deal in place for Wilder." Well, he's got quiet again on that.
You watch Eddie. Well, the Wilder fight's not going to happen. You watch Eddie now start to say, what we need really is all the promoters need to start working together. You watch him.
Well, he's already got begging ball out to work with Zhang.
Well, he's got the begging ball out with Conor Benn and Eubank Jr., hasn't he? He's
got a force issue on that, aren't they?
Yeah, they're trying to force that. He's trying to obviously get border control to cave in there. And he's got the begging ball out now saying, let's do Zhang, and we could even do it in China. it's funny, isn't it, how Zhang is obviously under promotional contract now to Queensbury, and Eddie is doing what Eddie always does. Eddie announces fights that are nothing to do with him. He can't help himself, can he? And now he's not only saying the Zhang fight's probably a good fight, he's saying we could do Zhang in China. That's a massive fight in China.
So that Eddie's in talks for that now in his head.
Oh, Eddie signed it. We're almost there. Remember, every big fight, it's done. The deal's done. Just a couple of things on the contract we've got to sort out, but the deal's done. The deal's never done, is it? So we got Anthony Joshua and Wilder. The deal's not done. Conor Benn and Eubank Jr. That deal's not done yet. And now we've got Anthony Joshua and Zhang in China. Interesting.
Zhang probably beats Joshua.
I mean, he's a very beatable fighter right now, isn't he? Zhang's a bit slow, but he's a sharpshooter. You know, you can have slow feet, but if you get your feet in position and you got quick hands, that can be the difference. And we've not seen anything with Zhang, have we, to suggest that AJ bangs him out.
No, we haven't. No.
He looks to have a solid chin, doesn't he? I might be wrong.
He's not knocking anybody out. His last 3 knockouts have been over 9 fights, and they were old men.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about, isn't it? We're talking about AJ under the microscope, looking at the data. We're talking about Conor Benn under the microscope, looking at the data. These are not devastating punches, are they?
They're going to be hard to match.
The data doesn't support it. They both got, you know, worries around the chin. They've had very little jeopardy when matched carefully recently. So there's a real theme going. Are you going to let them off the lead, Eddie? Are you going to let AJ off the lead? Are you going to let Conor Benn off the lead with someone who's live now? I don't think so. I mean, don't DAZN and Matchroom look after Virgil Ortiz? I don't know who promotes him or not, but I think they've got something contractual on Ortiz, haven't they? So why did you just do Conor Benn and Virgil Ortiz? Dead easy to make.
Yeah.
Conor Benn and McKinson, that would be an easy fight to make.
Yeah. Beefy against Conor Benn.
Yeah. Let's see it. I won't be surprised if they did that one now, because Beefy certainly looked shocked a bit.
Kell Brook and Conor Benn will be next chat.
I think you're right. I think that's the real cheeky one they're going to try and get through, is the Kell Brook one. Every time we see Kell Brook, he looks a bit slimmer, doesn't he?
Kell would write Conor Benn off. Write him off.
He's just really not all that, is he, young Conor?
Kell would play with him. Play with Conor Benn. Play with him.
He wouldn't need to have too much left, really, would he? I mean, everything's very, very predictable what's coming, isn't it? And yeah.
Okie dokie.
Not looking great for them, mate, is it?
Right. Well, listen, you take care. Thanks for coming on, Julian. You've been great.
My pleasure. See somebody. Thank you, everybody.
Right. Thanks for liking and subscribing and leaving a comment. Pop, pop, bang. Peace out.